Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's Business Support Series webinar, episode 19 of the Business Support Series, Leading Personnel Back to Work. I'm Mike Neal, President and CEO of the Tulsa Regional Chamber. Our Business Support Series offers insights on how your organization can effectively respond during the COVID-19 pandemic. There's an area where the Chamber can be of support to you or your team. Please feel free to let us know. As we've now entered phase 2 of the reopening, more and more employees are returning to the workplace. Today's discussion is about how companies can safely and effectively lead their workforces back to work. Before we discuss the topic in more detail with our speakers, I'd like to thank the sponsors of our Business Support Series, as you see listed at the bottom of your screen. Luxa Enterprises, Matrix Force, Security Bank, and Stennett Associates. And speaking of Stennett Associates, we're pleased to have with us Melinda Stennett, the Managing Director for Stennett Associates. Melinda's one of our outstanding Chamber Executive Committee and board members. You see her in front, and really her beautiful new house is behind her. But Melinda will introduce our guest speakers today. Melinda, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to join everyone today and introduce our speakers. Jeff Wilkie is a consulting executive for HoganTaylor Advisory Services. With 25 years experience in organizational effectiveness strategies, Jeff leads the human capital and organizational strategies niche for the firm. He works as a confidant, consultant, and coach to organizational executive teams and assists in the focus and formulation of a company's human capital strategies. His human capital career spans retail organizations, oil and gas industries, telecommunications, healthcare management, nonprofits, and governmental entities. Marya Bowman is the Director of Hilty Store Operations and Facilities for Hilti North America, leading a team of operations, construction, and facilities management. She has been in her current role since 2011, and alongside her team, she manages more than 120 leases and facilities, as well as the company's retail store operations. Marya joined the organization in 1997 as a Hilty store representative, and during the course of her career, she has held numerous for joining us today. Jeff, we'll start with you.
Thank you both so much for having us, and it's my pleasure to co-present with Marya. I am just thrilled. Taylor. I'd like to just hit 4 points really quickly. Some considerations, and this is a dual purpose. We have had this experience ourselves at HoganTaylor, but also regarding the same thing. So defining the why, planning for safe operations, maximizing employee adoption, and giving you a view of some additional resources that are available to you. So as we advance to the next slide, the most important thing behind the why we are returning, this is going to be really critical. If you read anything at all, you'll know Simon Sinek has been an author for a while, and he says, start with why. We think this is really important, and let's kind of talk about really asking, why are we moving back? What are the real decisions? In one sense, have we been closed without remote operations? So we know expedience is really important. Also, if our business was already operating remotely from home, this gives us greater flexibility, and we really need to ask the question, do we need to come back? Have we been productive? Have we been able to operate without being face-to-face, and have we been operating in a more virtual way? I've been really excited about how HoganTaylor is doing this currently, and how they are phasing us back in. But these are very important questions that we're asking right now, and these are important questions that we're helping clients consider. One of the things that I know you're here today to think about is, what are the strategies for returning back? What are some things to consider? So as you'll see on the next slide, I'm an old training and development guy and an educator at heart. And so I always think about things in terms of mnemonic hooks or memory, being able to key in there. So I would say that we're thinking about at HoganTaylor and advising our clients to really think about safe returns. And there are 4 things, so 4 letters in safe, 4 things to remember. Really when it comes down to thinking about how you re-enter into the sites is really thinking about site management and protocols, your essential vulnerable workers or what we consider to be still at-risk employees, the actual facility operations and protocol, and our community experience to employees. Just want to touch on a couple of items real quickly. So obviously, as we return, it will be really important to define what guided pathways people will take, what the directional flow of offices will be. I'm sure as we've gone to stores and restaurants, we've noticed we have kind of wayfinding and way direction guiding. We'll need to think about that. Also, we'll have to think about not only how often do we clean, but the availability of items as people would need that. Think about our at-risk employees. We really have to be able to ask questions, know where they are on the spectrum, and as they are able to share, what are their current accommodations at home, their cohabitation, and then what kind of flexibility can we offer to those employees? We have to think about that. Not only that, but we have to be able to assure employees that we have a protocol. So as we have visitors and attestation that people are healthy, that they are following their own requirements. And we have found that that has been really important for our office staff. And finally, my heart, as I'm sure it is most of you who are on the call today, your employees is your greatest assets. The communication and transparency during this time is really, really important. That we are talking with them. Just yesterday, our CEO, Randy Nail, did a wonderful perspective is on the firm. Every Monday, we have a video from him talking about where we are, communicating his own views, the important aspects of relatability in times of leadership, very, very important there. And just finally, I want to leave you with a quote: forgiveness and transparency. It's okay that things are not perfect. I don't think anybody expects that we are running a playbook that is tried and true. This is a new playbook for everybody. And I think employees understand that it doesn't have to be perfect. As an HR professional, always be aware of what the ADA and HIPAA is requiring on that. So those are really the kind of core content I wanted to share, wanted to make sure that I made available to you. So I'll go ahead and pass it.
Okay, Marya, I think you're up.
Great. Thank you, Melinda and Jeff. It's wonderful to be here and share with you our goal as Hilty as well, to keep our team members safe and our customers as well. So for a short introduction, in case people aren't familiar with Hilty, is that we are a direct sales force. More than 2/3 of our team members are out in the field, going out to job sites, going into contractors' offices, and really interacting with them one-on-one. And then we do have approximately 120 locations that have only retail stores, distribution centers, and tool service centers. So as you'll see on the next slide, we leapfrogged into the stay-at-home orders. We started off, we had our first crisis management team meeting in March, when our Washington State branch kind of raised a flag. We had an instance out there where a team member was in contact with somebody who was in contact with somebody who was sick. And so that really kicked us off, and how are we going to interact and things like that. And we progressed through there rapidly until we actually shut it down and went to a work from home situation about mid-March. And after that, we wanted to make sure not only were we keeping in contact with each other, but again, because we were a direct sales force, we had team members who were essential front line to go out onto those job sites for the hospitals or the infrastructure, and we needed to make sure they were safe. So from that point on, we were working on how do we keep our team safe, and we really follow the guidance of the CDC and the World Health Organization, and then also what local restrictions were put in place. And then from there, we talked about reboarding our teams. So, okay, great. Now we're all at home. Once the environment and the local authorities get the go ahead and say we're okay to go back out, how do we retransition our teams into the fields full time? And so we've seen the way in was kind of rapid. The way out is very sporadic. And for now, we have 3 states that are actually able to go out, make appointments, and excuse me, call on customers who are not only part of the essential infrastructure campaigns. So it's been really interesting. We are actually, I'm sitting in our Plano, Texas office today. We are setting up our offices to go through how to get our team members back, how to do our social distancing and things like that. We've worked on our Tulsa office all week, and last week preparing it as well. And you'll see on the next slide, we went through a survey. So we decided to go out to all of our team members and ask them how they feel. How do you feel about what we've done so far? What do you think is going to make you feel more comfortable coming back to work? We really put that in their hands to tell us, because again, as Jeff said, none of us are experts in this realm. And so we've followed all of the guidance from local authorities and try to make our best guess, but we wanted to ask them, what will make you feel comfortable to go and visit a customer or go back to the office to ensure that they feel safe and confident as well? And so what you'll see here is some of the responses from that survey on the left. And then we decided to do a slow 4-phased approach to ensure that we had all the correct personal protective equipment they needed to go out. And also we put in place, what you'll see at the bottom is playbooks for each type of position we had. We created a how do you go back to work. Most of them all start out with, if you're sick, please stay home. And then we go forward to, you make an appointment. When you make the appointment, you ask them these questions to ensure that the team members who are going out and interacting with companies who are not Hilti or other entities are also getting what they need from them to know what they can come to work with. We do have ongoing travel and meeting restrictions, and those will be continued. And we will have flexible work discussions and ongoing cadence for those, especially for the high-risk population. What we plan to do is mid-June, reopen our Tulsa office with about 20% of the in-office workforce. That way we can kind of test what we've put into place and really make sure that we don't have a bottleneck somewhere. You know, somebody doesn't say, oh, you made a one-way hallway that leads to a wall, you know, things like this. And then we would plan about 2 weeks later to open up the office to as much capacity as we can get to make it still safe from a socially distanced standard. So really that's it. We've tried going through all through this process to continue with our culture and to make sure that is at our backbone. We've had our team that usually manages that have team meetings where you talk about how you feel, make sure you're engaged. Some team leaders are having like scavenger hunts and they set something different in their background every day, and can you see this? And so they're really trying to ensure that we stay connected with our team members as well. That's it for me today. Thank you again.
Marya, thank you, and thank Jeff. I think both of you guys did a great job You were very succinct, but great presentations and great overview. And you said you weren't professionals at this, but you sure fooled me. And I think both of your organizations have done a masterful job in pivoting your companies, pivoting your strategies, and really your workforce. And we thank you for taking the time to share with us today. We don't have time to take live questions from the audience on today's webinar. We have a number of questions that were submitted in advance that I will ask Jeff and Marya to give us feedback on. The first one really has to do with that most businesses have had to update policies and procedures to adapt to this current COVID situation. And my question to you would be, how have you communicated your plans and policies and these changes to your employees? Certainly in the case of you, Marya, your employees are all over the United States and all over North America.
Right. So we have done a cadence of communication. So every week we have our CEO come on and talk about what is happening today and what changes they've seen and what we have had to adjust. Our executive board in Europe has also done the same. So they did a worldwide communication. Then our CEO communicated it, then our general managers of the sales force. So we've really done a cadence communication where we go through everything that's changed verbally. We then post the transcripts and the information behind it, and we've created an FAQ document. So as we do get questions, we always update that nobody's thought of. We'll get an answer for it and put it back out there.
Thanks, Marya. Jeff, anything to add there? Jeff, you're muted.
I would echo that. Sorry, thanks. I would echo that we've done similar things with, and you heard me mention how we've cascaded that through the organization. I do think it's important for people that are on the call that are in manufacturing. I know that OSHA has had some requirements that we've had to follow, as well as had to really talk about when you bring visitors in, what the proper procedures are for that. What is it if someone wants to utilize any PPE? I think you have to just make sure you've got that. I have not seen organizations change handbooks, but I think that is coming. The longer that this stays, I think there will be an update to that. And I think you could probably see that happening.
Thank you, Jeff. As you both mentioned, you both talked about bringing employees back and ensuring safe about their return to work. What are some ways that you would advise that businesses can gather employee feedback and counsel, as well as their questions surrounding the reopening processes?
So I know Hilti did a survey, and we have done similar surveys with our employees and just asking. And what I really like that she said that I think is going to be important for everybody is within the productivity questions and how are people doing from that standpoint, I think you have to ask people how they are doing, which means you have to get into feelings. And sometimes, while I don't think anybody here is Dr. Phil or should be Dr. Phil, I do think that finding out where people are is going to be very important, and really listening to them is going to be critical. That whole thing of feeling safe is a very real question. Would you feel safe coming to work? Would you feel safe going to a client location? Our audit teams are all the time going out and working at client locations. So we have a similar survey or questionnaire that we actually give to them where they can go and talk with clients about what's happening so they can feel safe about their visit, because that work still continues. That's important. So that's how I would answer that.
Thanks, Jeff. Marya?
Yeah, so I agree with what Jeff says. You're drawing a fine line here between being nosy and invasive and actually trying to get their common sense, like how you feel with them. The question we also do is, after the survey came up, we sent out all the survey. We told them up front it's not confidential. So we sent all the results out to their team leaders so that they can do a follow-up. So when we get ready to reboard that location, they can say, you said I feel great going back. Do you still feel that way? Are we good to go? Is there anything we need? If you feel very uncomfortable, we also have a set of questions for those team leaders to follow up on.
A little bit of a transition. Our next question really has to do with people in their current, let's say people are currently working remote and they haven't come back into the office yet. What are some ways, some tips, some suggestions that you both might have as to how a company can best keep those employees engaged as well as their morale high while they're physically distanced, but yet as they're beginning that process of bringing it, they're not together now, but how can you begin to bring them together, but keep them feeling from a positive morale perspective while they're not?
Marya, I'll give it to you first. Go ahead.
Okay. So we've done a number of actions, and every team's a little bit different, but we've emphasized to ensure that you have ongoing team meetings, and it doesn't always have to be a formal team meeting, but just a check-in or a happy hour, something where you're informally sitting as a group and discussing what's happening in your life. There's so many different things going on. People are wrangling with their children and staying in a close quarters with their entire family all day. How is that going? And then secondarily, on a more formalized method, is that our company has these team camps where we all get together and work on different actions, and they have a virtual manner and kind of flip the context a little bit to this more situational time.
Thanks, Marya. Jeff?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I've been amazed at the amount of creativity that's come up. And you heard Marya mention that, and I would just echo again, anytime that we can try to create in this virtual environment what we normally did, I would say that is a way to begin the process, because we don't want there to be an interruption in that sense of teamwork, of being cohesive. And I would say too, this is a very vulnerable time. We're experiencing things we've never experienced before, both personally and professionally. And I think that we have to make it okay for people to be able to share, hey, this is tough, this is difficult, or this was really funny, this is something that happened, right? And to be really engaged in the conversation. And so I think if you can do that, you are going to find, of course, there'll be a blip when we return, but I think there'll be less because we've made an active, we've really tried to keep people engaged and keep it light and fun. So I think that's going to be important.
Thank you, Jeff. We've been talking about employees. Well, let's transition slightly. Marya talked about this some in her intro, but let's talk about customers. Let's talk about customers and clients. And my question would be, what policies and procedures have you put in place in order to try to maintain the safety of your clients or customers?
Yeah, so for us, we've done a couple of different things. So for our retail stores, we went to a curbside will call only. So they call in their order to customer service, and we have a no contact pickup at our stores. And then for our team members who are frontline sales, they would only at the moment be able to go out if a customer called on them specifically for something that they could not handle virtually. And then when they go out, they wear a mask and obviously have hand sanitizer, things like that. But they ask their customer how to come to see them. And our customers, because they're general contractors, a lot of them have written rules of engagement to come to them. So we make sure we are complying with what our customers want.
Yeah, I would echo that. We're doing the same thing. We're making sure that they understand what our requirements are as we engage with them in terms of being on site. But in our client companies that we provide our outsourced services to, we are also making sure that they have those same standards that they're talking with their customers. So like one of the things is there's no such thing as just a drop-in anymore. It's by appointment only. And we have a set of questions that we ask. We ask them to do almost an attestation that they are healthy, that they have not come into contact with anyone. And if they had, and they come forward with that, then we have a set of protocols that we would probably, apply to them and ask them to abide by when they visit. But I think it's just so important to have this open communication and to make it okay, those questions, and keep it comfortable, because this is how we'll operate. I think this is going to change just the interaction, whether from Marya's standpoint, it's from a retail perspective, corporate. I just think it's going to be different for all of us and how we engage with clients and customers moving forward.
Jeff, to that point, thank you, Jeff. To that point, moving forward, let's transition into maybe the hiring space. Or post-COVID, do you envision that the hiring process for companies will look different as we move ahead?
Yeah, I would say that it's going to be a very unique conversation that we have with people, because if you're aware of the ADA and with these HIPAA regulations, what you can and can't ask prospective candidates when they come on site, or questions related to their personal health. I think because it is a pandemic, those rules are loosened a bit. I still think you need to be careful, but it is really important for you to ask those same questions, just like they would be a visitor. I also think that the hiring process, before, when we had to do an interview online through this type of medium, was kind of an anomaly, and we only did it, if in certain cases. I think this is the medium now. I think you have to be able to totally present as a candidate through this medium, be professional, and you also have to be able to assess as the employer, is this person really the right candidate for us? So I think we're going to see major changes that are going to stick, aren't fleeting, but are going to stick.
Thanks, Jeff. Marya?
Yeah, I'd echo what Jeff says. For sure, we've been doing all of our hiring virtually, and we've done that for a while, especially if we had long distance hires. However, the one thing we have seen is the onboarding process. So beyond the hire, it's that first few weeks of onboarding and how that has changed. And that's where we're going to have to work on, because as you come on board, how do you ingrain them into the culture of the company without physically being there? How do you create that bond? So that's something we have not tackled yet, but we will definitely need to.
Okay, thanks. We have time for one final question. I'll ask you both to kind of give about a 30-second response, if you could, and that is, what's the most important thing that you can do during this time to be an effective leader for your organization or your team?
So really quickly, I would say communication. It's ongoing and constant communication and connection with your team members, so they know what the company needs and what they need. So you have that back and forth.
Thanks, Marya.
And I would say, I would also say to be mindful of your own awareness, kind of where you are as a leader, and to be able to understand that and to share that, to be relatable during this time. But absolutely, communication, keeping that connection open is going to be very important.
Sort of, Jeff, I affectionately say I make CEO calls for a living, and as I've been making CEO calls on a constant basis throughout this process, the one thing I've heard from everybody has been the importance of communication, just as you both described. Communication is so absolutely essential. Let me again thank Jeff, Marya, and Melinda for joining us today. Again, I'd like to thank our sponsors listed at the bottom of your screen: Luxa Enterprises, Matrix Force, Security Bank, Stennett and Associates for your support. Anyone who came in late in the middle of our webinar or joined by phone, and if you'd like to share this webinar with any of your associates or colleagues, a recording will be posted on our Chamber's website later this afternoon. Our next Business Support Series webinar will be this Thursday, May the 21st at 11 a.m. We'll be joined by Robin Robertson, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission. She may be the hardest working lady in the state of Oklahoma because she's been having to manage this unemployment process for the past 2 months. But we'll have a 30-minute discussion about unemployment and resources for job seekers. And finally, we will host a legislative briefing breakfast this Friday, May the 22nd at 9 a.m. With the House and Senate, Oklahoma House and Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee chairs. Proved to be a very interesting discussion as the state legislature is in the process of wrapping up. We'll have business leaders, One Voice partners, and elected officials who will join us for that process. Again, for both of those sessions on Thursday and Friday, advanced registration is required as those are virtual events, and please go to tulsachamber.com/events to join us and register to joining us for those. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out to our chamber staff or to any of us if we can be of assistance to you or your business as you're beginning to transition during this COVID process and bringing your people back into the workforce again. Thanks to Jeff and Marya. You guys were fantastic. Thank you all for joining us and hope you have a wonderful day and a great week. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye.